So, Catherine, you've moved from elite sport into teaching in a school. You can see systems under load every day. Young people under pressure, adults trying to hold standards. What have you noticed about about how leadership actually works in that environment, and that's challenged or changed? And what have you taken from rugby?
Yeah, interesting. So I left teaching at Christmas. So I went into teaching actually just after COVID. So I was running my business, and like many organisations, that got affected
Hmm.
quite massively. Had had my daughter, had like, a baby at the time, so I was like, maybe I will do a normal proper job.
Hmm.
So I contacted my local school. Can I train to be a teacher? And I'm like, well, yes, please. And then they offered me a job, and then I stayed there for 5.5 years. So I've only ever taught in one school, so it's um, maybe difficult for me to have a sort of a broad view on it. And I'm trying to be a bit diplomatic in how I answer this because I've only been in one school. I found it an interesting environment. I think because I'd come from outside in, I came into this very kind of quite insular, quite inward looking environment who probably not in all schools who are a bit scared of getting outside knowledge in. Um, and I think it's probably a broken system too. It's not a podcast about teaching, and I probably don't have enough knowledge about teaching to know it. But and you got a rugby team or we're a high performing team, you see what your strengths are in that team, and you can actually shape the systems around that in a certain way. They don't have to be fixed, or like a very, very simple example, use myself, I was sort of ball carrying eight. Well, you can shape your structure around that. They were talking about on pitch stuff. In teaching, it was like, well, the system didn't change, and we were having to fit all these different, whether it's students or whether it's teachers, having to fit all these different individuals into this one system. And for many students, that didn't work, trying to fit them into this one kind of class environment and really ultimately learn in the same way, although we talk about differentiation and whatever else it might be in teaching. And likewise with teachers a little bit. Um, 'Cause I've got a really, really tough job, but, I taught nearly 500 kids. Some of them I saw once a week, and I was supposed to know everything about them. I might have had 32 kids in front of me. I'm, like, on my own, and I've got to, like, teach in a way that suits every single one of those students and know where their progress is and do all this sort of other stuff. It's a quite tough environment, really, and I think it's quite cluttered. I
Mm.
think I think there are lots of lessons of sport that could go into education. I always a strong believer in sport that you do the basics really, really well, and everything else will come on top of that. And I felt like in teaching, everyone was trying to do that, but there there was just no time. You couldn't do your job properly in teaching. I don't think because of the system, which is quite a tough one, really. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so this is probably not a it's not a podcast to probably to address the challenges of the education system and
Hmm.
teaching. Um, I feel that there was probably more lessons from sport that could go into education than possibly the other way around. I feel I think sport do a lot of things really well. I think
Hmm.
we, recognise as the different strengths in people, recognizing let's give a really simple example. When I've coached teams, just occasionally you might get someone who thrives on being told that they can't do something, and then they'll be you're not many, and you have time to be able to recognise that. Most people thrive on telling them that they're quite good, and they build confidence from that. But you have the time and the space allowed to be able to recognise that and how you can kind of motivate different individuals. Um, and you don't really have the time or space to be able to do that in education, which is quite frustrating.